The anima is not a theory. She is a living presence. She can charm, confuse, wound, and bless. For a man, the anima is both bridge and abyss. The inner feminine who mediates his relation to the unconscious, while also being the source of countless projections onto women, leading him into love, disillusion, or despair. Von Franz, from her decades of listening to dreams, shows how the anima unfolds in stages. When immature, she pulls him into fantasy and suffering. Met with consciousness, she becomes a guide and creative muse. She is never only personal, she is a figure of the soul, testing whether a man's power serves the ego or bows to something deeper. No man becomes truly generative, able to bless others, without meeting her. She asks a simple, severe question. Who do you serve, the ego or the soul? As you listen, try and hold a mirror. The anima is not out there in women, but in here, shaping how a man loves, creates, and suffers. To mistake her for literal reality is to remain bound in projection. To enter into dialogue with her is to promote the lifelong process of individuation. This is why Jung insisted that every man must encounter the anima, and why von Franz's clarity is vital. She helps us discern illusion from symbol, projection from presence, so that what begins as deception may, if endured, become wisdom.
The anima is the archetype of life, and it is, when the anima is negative, it is the impulse to dream about life and to make wishful fantasies about life instead of living life.
How is a man supposed to make sense out of this incredible number of forms that his femininity takes in his dreams?
The anima has many stages and embraces a great range of psychological facts. Jung once divided it in four: Eve, Helena, Mary, and Sophia, the wisdom of God. Eve would be the biological woman, and when she appears as an anima, she would be the biological sex, the physical attraction, motherhood, the image of the ordinary attractive female. Helena is on a higher stage. She would represent the hetaira, as the Greeks, for instance, developed a type of their form of geishas, the hetaira, cultivated women with whom one had not only a sexual adventure, but with whom one exchanged poetry and philosophical conversations, where the man had also a spiritual companion in the woman, a companionship, together with romantic sex. The next stage is the anima figure in Christianity of the Virgin Mary, which is the highest form of spirituality, but a bit one-sidedly too high up. The Virgin Mary is lacking the dark Eve side of woman, the earthy side of woman. So it is a bit a too lofty ideal. And when the church abolished the Cour d'Amour, they forced the knights to worship the Virgin Mary instead. And at the same time they began the witch hunting. That means the dark side, the shadow side, or the more biological and wilder, the more natural side of the anima is too much excluded from the ideal of the Virgin Mary. And therefore the fourth stage is the wisdom of God is, as Jung smilingly quoted, is a come down, because wisdom is not most virtuous spirituality. It is closer to life. It would be when a man knows how to love women and knows how to relate to women but having wisdom at the same time. The wisdom which protects him from their devouring side. The highest form of love is also something with a grain of salt in it.
And what do you mean by that?
I won't say.
And where do you see the anima manifest in life?
On a primitive level, it appears in men generally as an element of romantic, unreal, mostly sexual fantasies. And you see, for instance, in puberty, when young men are very active and then suddenly they become passive and dreamy and they are not there and their performance in school goes down tremendously and one has the feeling, where is that? Where has that young man disappeared? He's in the clutches up to the neck of daydreaming sexual fantasies. In that age, it is a normal transition. But if a man gets stuck in indulging in wishful sexual fantasies, he literally falls into the hand of a vampire. He loses his capacity of taking his own life in hand. He loses his willpower. He loses all his male efficiency. And he just daydreams all the time about women and their curves and would-be romantic adventures and so on. He lives in an unreal life. I saw once a man who was 43, still living with his mother, who had never approached a woman. I asked him, what on earth are you doing with your sex? And he gave a secretive smile and didn't confess. He just masturbated wildly every night. And then he dreamt that he was in daytime living an ordinary life, but in the nighttime he was living on a luscious island where he had wild sexual adventures with women. That was the fantasy world into which he had disappeared. In a primitive tribe, one would say such a man has been bewitched. He's bewitched.
We would say he's locked into an infantile attitude to life. He's being devoured by the mother. The anima in her developed form connects a man to the source of his being. That is, his feelings are individual. They're connected to who he really is. They're not just reactions to outer life.
Before we go into the dream, we have to look at the fact that the main figure of the dream is the wife of the dreamer, but it's not his actual wife. It is another figure which he laterly associates with Joan of Arc and who is pregnant. So if somebody dreams of his husband or wife and they look quite differently, they are different figures, it means the inner wife or the inner husband. In other words, the main animus or anima figure to whom they are, so to speak, always married inwardly. It's the inner marriage and the inner wife. And here the dream runs that first there is a kind of mystery play which enacts the crucifixion of Christ. But it's only acting. It is a bit dangerous because the cross is high, but actually it's only acting. This illustrates exactly the situation of the religious situation of our time. Christianity has become, on one way, a historical reminiscence for most people. A mystery play reenacts medieval plays in a medieval form, so as if we would rehearse some of our historical past, and also it is an outer imitation. There has always been the problem that the churches have taught us to imitate Christ in the wrong way, namely to imitate his outer actions. I would rather call that to ape Christ. And This aping of Christ has not gone under our skin. We have not become Christianized. If you look at the history of the Western world and its wars and bloody fights, you see that the Christianization has not reached us at all. We are Christians with our lips and outwardly, but when it comes to psychological facts, we are complete pagan barbarians. And that is because we only ape Christ outwardly. We make pious historical reminiscences. We read the Gospels. We have the Gospels repeated in church. And nobody is reached by, or many people are not reached by it, are not touched. It doesn't go under their skin at all.
You always talk about the essence of a dream message, right? The dream's got an essence. What's the essence of the dream message for him?
This dream tells the dreamer that now something unusual is going to happen. Namely, this mysterious wife, pregnant wife of his, is going to be crucified in the place of Christ. And he trembles in realizing the solemn performance. That is the solemn and crucial moment where we can say that the Christian teaching or the mystery of what Christ represents reaches his own soul.
In Jungian psychology, we use the word soul, and usually that word's thought about within a theological context. Could you interpret this dream in such a way that the psychological meaning of the word soul would be clear?
This inner wife of his who is crucified is the dreamer's soul. It is his anima. And the anima in a man means also his feeling personality, his sensitivity, his awareness of inner things. If a man has a positive relationship to his anima, he is sensitive, he is aware of inner things, he is receptive to the spiritual processes in the depth of the psyche. That is his anima. And the crucifixion, which is the being extended between the opposites to suffer the utmost clash of opposites. The cross is this, the two opposites clashing together. That's why when Christ was on the cross, he said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? He was absolutely torn between the opposites. He blotted out between the opposites. This central teaching of the Christian mystery is now going to be realized by his soul. It will happen in him. And that means he will suffer it, he will go through it, and he will begin to then feel that the Christian teaching is a psychological reality. It's not some gesture out there which we have to ape, or some kind of conventional behavior which is being taught to us by parsons and priests. It is something which touches our and concerns our innermost psychic being.
Christ has always been thought of as a masculine symbol, yet the dream uses Christ to represent the dreamer's femininity.
It has always been taught by certain Christian mystics that we should be Christified, that the true imitation of Christ is to become Christ ourselves, to be transformed into Christ ourselves inwardly or psychologically. And that is now what the dream predicts is happening to the dreamer. Now he will be a Christian. After that experience, he will know what it means to be crucified between the opposite, and he will know what it means to carry his own cross and to carry his own destiny to the ultimate. Christ, in a way, is the model of a man who went alone along with his own fate and carried his own cross and fulfilled his own task without wavering or giving in to any collective pressure. That's why we worship him as a man who has become God, as God having become man in him. He carries out that. And the dreamer is now reached by the same. The Christian teaching is, so to speak, reaching his soul now. He associates this crucified woman with Joan of Arc, which is an appropriate association because Joan of Arc herself was such a crucified figure. Joan of Arc went also, she didn't ape Christ, she imitated Christ in the right way, in living her own destiny, individual destiny, right through the cross and right through even outer death.
I'm curious to know what you'll have to say about this dream. It's, I think, the most beautiful dream I ever had. I dreamt that I was walking along beside this enormous river. Swift current, and the light was flashing back off the water. Then I looked up a hill, and on top of the hill was a castle. It was surrounded by a moat. I went across the drawbridge into the castle and into a central courtyard, in the center of which was a well, and a woman was sitting on the wall of this well, and she had a ladle, and she lowered the ladle down into the well and held it out to me. I took it and drank the water, and then she dipped again and gave it to me a second time. And then the third time she repeated the same procedure. And then I sat down on the edge of the well facing her. She had on this gorgeous blue dress, a very, very beautiful woman. And I just had this feeling of peace. And I woke up.
We have seen before that the dream world and the unconscious psyche shows its positive face only to us if we go with life, if we don't refuse to live. We go. We speak of the river often as the flow of life, the flow of time. Time is a river which ends in the ocean of eternity. Life is a river, it begins with a youthful spring and finally ends in the sea of the Godhead, and so on. It's a famous simile for the ever-moving, ever-changing facts of life, which are really the ever-moving changing of our psychic element, substance which carries us. We think a minute of the strange thing that our ego consciousness is every night blotted out for hours and returns identical the next morning. Why should you not wake up and be somebody else? You are completely continuous yourself. So there's something which carries us through, apparently, which carries our identity through all life. Our body changes its cells. We have practically no old cells in our body left after 7 years, and still we remain ourselves. There's something like an essential psychic substance in us which carries us through in our identity, and that is this mysterious flow of life. That's the river. And there he meets the woman at the well, and one naturally thinks of Christ's conversation with the Samaritan woman. That is also the beautiful historical example of the meeting of the Christ, one of the few meetings where Christ in a meaningful way encounters the feminine and takes up contact with it.
What's the meaning of the dream being said in the medieval castle?
The anima in her developed form is in man the capacity for love, in contrast to the power drive. It is loving for love's sake in the highest form. That's why this woman appears in a medieval castle surrounded by a moat, because that in medieval time, in the so-called French cour d'amour, courts of love, there was the first time in the Western Christian civilization a realization of the anima. There, each knight elected a woman of his choice, which was not his wife, and who represented his beloved anima figure, and he made poems for her, and he did his heroic deeds for her, and he worshipped her like a goddess. And that at the same time was those men grew out of their barbarian warriors' behavior and became cultivated people who men who could really relate to women, men who cultivated their capacity of love, their sensitivity. And that's why this is the time of the Grail legends, of the troubadours, of the story of Tristan and Isolde, and these love traditions. The church didn't like this development because it led to all sorts of complications, and it made people a bit too independent from her. And so it was suppressed. And interestingly enough, when those cours d'amour were suppressed, the witch hunting began. The feminine became negative, and one began to pursue alluring, interesting women as witches, because one had suppressed a beginning development of love life. That is why when we now are confronted with the problem of renewing the relationship between the sexes and finding new forms of relating between men and women, we have to historically go back to the Middle Ages, to that where the problem has been left over in this castle in the moat. There the problem has been deserted and left for a one-sided masculine rational development of the West, and therefore we have to return to that. And for instance, the whole romanticism of the hippie movement was such a first attempt. That's why they were imitated troubadours with music instruments and even revived troubadour music. That was all going back, that now the anima development is most important for men, and the animus development for women.
And what about the ladles of water that the beautiful lady offers?
The only action of the dream, because that dream in first line speaks through its beauty and its feeling value, and needs not much rational explanation. The only action is that the anima figure 3 times give the dreamer some of the water of life to drink. The anima has the water of life, and the water of life is, well, that is difficult to define, but you can say most people experience, sometimes they feel when they feel well, they say they feel alive. Even if they might have sufferings and difficulties in their life, there are times where people feel alive. And then when people are in a neurotic fix or in some trouble, they say, I'm dead, I'm inwardly dead, I don't live. This shows that being alive is not only a physical fact, it is a psychic fact. Being alive is, we are alive when we feel alive. And what makes us feel alive is the contact with that flow of the unconscious psyche. That's why dreams are so important. You can say, you could even refer that deeper with a bit of water of life to say each ladle full of water of life is a dream. That's what a dream is. We get every night, so to speak, a sip of the water of life. And if we understand the dream, then we are vivified. And then we feel alive. We feel in contact with our psychic depth and with our own living substance. And then we subjectively feel that life is flowing, that we are alive.
Every man has a girl of his dreams, a divine image of beauty and perfection. Jung called a man's inner woman his anima, which is Latin for soul. She animates life. She can inspire a man or devour him, but whether he likes it or not, it's the male's fate to pursue his soul through life. We're constantly searching for the girl of our dreams.
Oh, last night I dreamed that his girlfriend showed up at the kite stand today, and we were all going to go out on the boat. We were supposed to go out on his brother's boat, and I thought she showed up, and I thought it was really strange because yesterday he told her to go fly a kite. Not, he didn't want to be with her anymore. And I thought, here she is again. That's all I remember.
Dreams, I have good ones. My dreams are usually things sexual. They usually come true. No. Usually about my girlfriends. And
the normal dreams of a man are surely about wives, you see. That is absolutely normal.
You have any dreams?
Yeah, wet ones. Wet ones. All the time.
This was a fairly nasty idea, but she came up slowly towards me, and she sat down next to me, you see. And at this moment, I became acutely aware of her presence because I could feel her wet leg against my wet leg, and I could feel my heart beating against this.
You have a dream girl?
Oh, yeah, I got a dream girl.
Who's your dream girl?
Malena.
Why not?
Well, Oh, I forgot her last name. She's gonna kill me. Brown, suntan, brown, blue eyes, blonde, typical Californian girl. That's what we hear.
Oh, I can't. I have to see her. Then I know what kind of girl it is.
Have you ever seen her?
In California, no.
When I'd see her, I'd know her. Other than that, I won't make any commitments.
Have you ever see her?
No. Not yet. I'm still looking, though.
Do you have a woman in your dreams?
The girl in my dream I'm married to. Oh, she's about 5'5", 130 pounds. Built pretty nice. Measurements is 36, 24, 36. Healthy.
I was walking along a city street in the rain, mid-afternoon, with a friend. I don't know who the friend was, except that it was a man. We looked up, and to the left, to our left, was an empty window, dark. To the right was another window in which sat a young woman in her early 20s. She had long, mousy brown hair pulled back in a ponytail. It was greasy and almost dead. Her face, too, was dead. There was no expression in it at all. She simply sat staring out into the street, and yet not staring at anything. There was no focus in her eyes.
Often.
Who is she?
I wish I knew.
I've dreamt about every kind of woman imaginable. I've dreamt about Marilyn Monroe, the Queen, beautiful one at a well, my mother, virgins, prostitutes, fat ones, thin ones, black ones, white ones. I've even dreamt about you. How is a man supposed to make sense out of this incredible number of forms that his femininity takes in his dreams?
The anima has many stages and embraces a great range of psychological facts. Jung once divided it in four: Eve, Helena, Mary, and Sophia, the wisdom of God. Eve would be the biological woman, and when she appears as an anima, she would be the biological sex, the physical attraction, motherhood, the image of the ordinary attractive female. Helena is on a higher stage. She would represent the hetaira, as the Greeks, for instance, developed a type of their form of geishas, the hetaira, cultivated women with whom one had not only a sexual adventure, but with whom one exchanged poetry and philosophical conversations, where the man had also a spiritual companion in the woman, a companionship, together with romantic sex. The next stage is the anima figure in Christianity of the Virgin Mary, which is the highest form of spirituality, but a bit one-sidedly too high up. The Virgin Mary is lacking the dark Eve side of woman, the earthy side of woman. So it is a bit a too lofty ideal. And when the church abolished the Cour d'Amour, they forced the knights to worship the Virgin Mary instead. And at the same time they began the witch hunting. That means the dark side, the shadow side, or the more biological and wilder, the more natural side of the anima is too much excluded from the ideal of the Virgin Mary. And therefore the fourth stage is the wisdom of God is, as Jung smilingly quoted, is a come down, because wisdom is not most virtuous spirituality. It is closer to life. It would be when a man knows how to love women and knows how to relate to women but having wisdom at the same time. The wisdom which protects him from their devouring side. The highest form of love is also something with a grain of salt in it.
And what do you mean by that?
I won't say.
And where do you see the anima manifest in life?
On a primitive level, it appears in men generally as an element of romantic, unreal, mostly sexual fantasies. And you see, for instance, in puberty, when young men are very active and then suddenly they become passive and dreamy and they are not there and their performance in school goes down tremendously and one has the feeling, where is that? Where has that young man disappeared? He's in the clutches up to the neck of daydreaming sexual fantasies. In that age, it is a normal transition. But if a man gets stuck in indulging in wishful sexual fantasies, he literally falls into the hand of a vampire. He loses his capacity of taking his own life in hand. He loses his willpower. He loses all his male efficiency. And he just daydreams all the time about women and their curves and would-be romantic adventures and so on. He lives in an unreal life. I saw once a man who was 43, still living with his mother, who had never approached a woman. I asked him, what on earth are you doing with your sex? And he gave a secretive smile and didn't confess. He just masturbated wildly every night. And then he dreamt that he was in daytime living an ordinary life, but in the nighttime he was living on a luscious island where he had wild sexual adventures with women. That was the fantasy world into which he had disappeared. In a primitive tribe, one would say such a man has been bewitched. He's bewitched.